Triple H's and the WWE's master plan has been revealed after WrestleMania 40, including lots of hints towards potential future feuds. We have Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre, CM Punk, even a Reigns-Rollins feud that might come to fruition. We have a lot to discuss, so stick around for all of that coming up on this episode of Wrestle Digest. But as always, before we get into the video, guys, just a reminder, over 97% of the viewers who are watching this video are not subscribed. Guys, we have daily wrestling content. If that sounds like your thing, hit that button down below. We'd really appreciate it. Casey, there's a lot of stuff we can talk about, but I think I'd like to start with Damian Priest, and there have been a lot of seeds planted for him, of course, fresh off his first ever world title win, I guess, cashing in on Drew McIntyre after his beatdown from CM Punk, and we'll be getting into that later in the video, so you'll want to stay tuned. But of course, Damian Priest, honestly, a bit surprised that he won this at this point, thought he'd hold on to the briefcase a bit longer because he wasn't really built as a world champion level guy, but hey, they did it. It shocked us all, and I loved it. But Casey, there's a lot of stuff going on with Damian Priest. Of course, they've had a slight feud building between him and Finn Balor dating back to last year. Of course, this screenshot here from when Balor asked, you'd never cash in on me, hypothetically, would you? And this is before the Money in the Bank, and Priest was like, you never know. What are your thoughts about Damian Priest? I know we'll get into potentially maybe who might take the World Heavyweight Championship off him later, but for immediate feuds, I feel like the recent build within the last number of months indicates that a nice little Balor-Priest feud that might culminate in something to happen within the Judgment Day could be on the horizon.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with what you're saying there. I think that is the best direction for this to go in. I think they've kind of, like you said, been hinting at it for months now. And I think Finn is a better babyface than he is a heel personally. I just like, when he does the lights go up and his theme song is just amazing. So I think maybe you switch him back to face here to take on Damian Priest. I think what's going to happen is over the next little while, we're going to see maybe Finn start becoming a little bit jealous. When he was champion, he never got to live it out because he got injured. So I think this is what's going to play out. And I think the most likely thing to happen with the World Heavyweight Championship is the downfall of the Judgment Day.
Yeah, and who knows how long that could take to play out. I mean, that could be a storyline that culminates by the end of the summer. It could be something we don't see culminate for another couple of years. But now that Damian Priest is a main event level guy, who knows where the story could go. But I think this feud is going to come at some point in the future. But let's move on to the next thing. We have a lot of stuff to talk about in this video, and that has to be this intercontinental picture with Sami Zayn, Chad Gable, and formerly Gunther, who we'll get into at the end of this segment. But of course, Sami Zayn, Chad Gable, I mean, this is something that we didn't know was going to build until just like right before WrestleMania, basically. Of course, Sami winning due to the help of Chad Gable, but right before his matches, we all saw Chad Gable said, hey, don't forget, you owe me a favor. Casey, this just feels like it has to culminate in an intercontinental match between Chad Gable and Sami Zayn, maybe as soon as Backlash in France. I feel like this is a big, big feud, and who knows who else could enter this picture, but this to me seems like the trails, the little breadcrumbs were laid along the trail for this to be a marquee matchup coming one of the next couple PLEs.
Yeah, 100%. I think this match is bound to happen, whether we see it tonight on Raw, whether we see it at the next PLE. I think this is what's going to take place here. It is a tough one to sell, though, in my opinion. You got two faces here going back and forth, and I don't know if that would really draw much attention to it. Maybe we may see one of these guys, turn heel for a little bit. I don't think they have that much star power. Obviously, Sami Zayn has it, but I don't think Chad Gable is on that same level of a star versus star, match for the title. So it will be interesting to see how they play into that. But I do think that Chad Gable's favor is an Intercontinental Championship match.
Yeah, I completely agree. And hey, we saw Chad Gable wearing the American Alpha jacket when he was watching that original Sami Zayn match. I think it was against Bronson Reed on that episode of Raw. So you never know. I think if one of them's going to turn heel, I think it got to be Chad Gable. I don't think they turn Sami heel before Money in the Bank in Toronto at the very least. Raw is in Montreal next week as well. Who knows what could happen, but I think that's the case for sure, Casey. And the other thing we got to talk about quickly before we move on is Gunther. I think we just got to say all the breadcrumbs, again, were laid for him to move to the main event picture, and those have been laid since basically he debuted. This guy has been one of, if not the best pure wrestler in the company, arguably in the world for the last while. Gunther is my personal favorite wrestler on the roster. I'd love to see him immediately get a title shot. If you had to call it, World Heavyweight or WWE title picture right away? Who are you calling? For me, I'm thinking World Heavyweight, but I can see a world where he goes after Cody.
Yeah, I definitely am on the same wavelength as you. I think the Ring General
Yes.
Gunther, I think he's definitely going to go after Priest here in the World Heavyweight title picture. Makes sense. He's a Raw guy. The championship is Raw. It just
Hmm.
makes more sense to me. I think it's an easier sell than Sami Zayn and Chad Gable. I think that a lot of people don't like Damian Priest, so maybe, the people who like Gunther, obviously he's a heel, that will cheer for him over, Damian Priest,
Hmm.
who many WWE fans don't really like.
I mean, that's like you could turn Gunther face in an instant as well, which just gives this potential future title run, world title run, so much potential for some great stuff. So really excited to see what's on the horizon for Gunther. But speaking of that world heavyweight title picture, McIntyre, Punk, KC, these seeds, I mean, I keep saying the same turn of phrase, but these seeds have been planted for ages, ever since CM Punk returned to WWE, basically. I mean, Drew McIntyre in the last few months has been going bananas on social media, going after everyone and everything and everyone, but most importantly, CM Punk. And, despite winning the World Heavyweight Championship for about 5 minutes before he was cashed in on. I mean, he decided to do exactly what he complained that Seth Rollins did in focusing on something other than the world title. He complained Seth was too focused on The Rock and this other Night 1 main event. Well, Drew lost his focus, went after CM Punk, focused on something other than the title. Punk made him pay, eventually leading to that Damian Priest cash. And of course, this feels like something that has built up for ages, KC, and with Clash at the Castle coming later this summer in Drew McIntyre's home country of Scotland, you gotta think a feud. I think between these two guys, no matter who has the championship before, it doesn't matter. I think one of these two, Punk or McIntyre, goes into Clash at the Castle as champion, and they have to have a huge matchup, even if it doesn't involve the championship. You got to think that Punk versus McIntyre is coming at one of these major PLEs this summer, and I feel like there's no better place than Drew's home country, Clash at the Castle.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a feud that I really love. I love these guys. They're both great combatants on the mic and in the ring. And I think the build up to this is just going to be so much better now that Punk kind of cost him, or did cost him, his shot at being World Heavyweight Champion.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is really going to boil over here. We see Drew McIntyre take to social media quite often
In the
with his,
match.
DM Hunk, yeah, during the matches, his DM Hunk t-shirts. I just think it's great that these guys are both going to be great building the match, and I
Mm-hmm.
think, like you said, it is going to come at Clash at the Castle. Whether or not it's for a title is kind of up in the air for me. I think that these guys could easily sell a main event without a championship being
For
in
sure.
it, with this feud just bubbling.
Yeah, I completely agree. And hey, no matter when one of them eventually wins the title, because I do believe one of them is going to get the title eventually, that feud's going to be legendary too. I think McIntyre is going to try and kill CM Punk. Like, I think he is just so, the pissed off Scott, right? Like, this is going to be so amazing. But like we said, just watching all the stuff unfold, it was perfect storytelling leading up to this. What's going to be arguably the feud of the year when it happens, if it isn't even already, right? Like, it's already built up like crazy. So some awesome stuff there. But the final thing we got to get into, KC, is we got to talk about Roman and Seth. Now, Roman Reigns, we don't know when he's going to be back. I mean, we don't know if he's gone for good. I mean, if you watch the end of that biography, some people might think he might never return to the WWE, but he has to come back, right? At least for a Roman versus Rock thing, maybe in more of a legend capacity. But they planted some seeds for Roman and Seth, and we got to get into those, right? Not that. There it is. Of course, Roman, he cost himself the title retention by focusing on Seth Rollins. 10 years of storytelling in the making. Seth taking that chair shot just like Roman did many years ago at the hands of the Shield himself. At this point, it feels like Seth Rollins is the singular embodiment of the Shield. Of course, that led to Cody's magnificent win on night 2. But Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, I mean, those seeds were planted. You could argue that this was the culmination and the end of their story, or you could argue that Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns might end up going against each other later and riding off into the sunset together. I'm seeing a lot of things on both ends, and I think the WWE sort of maybe intentionally left it open a little bit. Like, yes, that chair shot closes up a long-term story with the Shield, with Roman, with Seth turning on Roman, all this stuff. Do you see a world where they go after each other in the future to kind of culminate their careers? Because while, yes, this is payback, it doesn't feel like the end of this story to me.
Yeah, this is a hard one to gauge for me personally because Roman kind of said if he lost the championship at WrestleMania, he was going to retire.
Hmm.
Obviously, he's going to focus on his health and recovering and stuff like that. And Seth Rollins is kind of up in the air as well because obviously his wife, Becky Lynch, her contract is up in 2 months. So maybe she moves on to somewhere else.
Hmm.
Maybe she takes a role within NXT as a developmental person. We could see that unfold as well. But if you think she moves on, you kind of have to think that Seth is going to follow. They just had a kid together. They're married. Being in two different companies is hard as it is, but when you have a kid in that mix, it's going to be a tough family dynamic for them outside of the ring. So it's all up in the air, like you said, for this match. I do really want to see this, and I think if this does happen, John Moxley or
Oh yeah.
Dean Ambrose needs to be back. He needs to be back in the mix for this. It needs to be a Shield triple threat. Clue up that whole Shield storyline, and then, like you said, they can all ride off into the sunset, knowing that they left a lasting impact within the WWE, and obviously John Moxley within AEW. I just think this needs to happen at some point. Like you said, Roman finally got his payback. All that years of frustration that Seth has caused to him, he finally let it all out. It did cost him his undisputed Universal Championship, but he did get it out, and I really do think that in the future, if Roman's feeling like he wants to come back for one last match, I think this is the match he wants to go out on. And before I toss it back to you, I gotta say, Triple H is in the kitchen.
Oh, he's
He's
cooking.
cooking. He's cooking, man. He's got some great storylines coming up here, and I'm really excited for wrestling. And I think, like you said, it's a new era, and it's going to be maybe one of the best eras under Paul Levesque.
As Michael Cole said, I love professional wrestling. This is going to be amazing. I mean, they could go so many different ways with the way they ended that match. I mean, you could consider it the conclusion with Roman hitting or costing his title with the steel chair hit, or you could consider it just the beginning of a new feud in the future. And don't forget, Roman Reigns has never really gotten the best of Seth Rollins. In that, he got the steel chair shot, but I think Roman might want that one final victory. Rollins was always one step ahead of him, seemingly the whole way through, and if we could get Ambrose back like we thought we maybe got last night for about a minute before we saw Seth get in the ring, I think that would be phenomenal. But what do you guys think? This is mostly fantasy booking, but I wouldn't surprise me in a year, 2 years down the line, this comes to fruition. It would be amazing to see it. We could all look back at WrestleMania 40 and say, holy crap, what they did to set up these long-term stories could go down as one of the best moments in wrestling history. But that'll do it for this episode of Wrestle Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel for daily wrestling content. We know you guys love that. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, KC. We'll catch you in the next one.